Okay, so here we are with the second half of the dotted Breve evaluations. And my computer actually was messing up yesterday when I was trying to print or export the Sibelius files that I had to video. So I kind of did a kind of improv of some of the ones that I had. Now these particular scores that I've got, I do not have the audio for anymore. If it was sent to me, the ones that are just PDF, I was sent PDF and mock-up audio clips for some of these, and some of them were just PDF, and some of them were Sibelius files. So for the Sibelius files, I have exported mock-ups because now my system is working again for some very weird reason. I have no idea why. So, anyways, with that, let's jump into this with Mike Henebry's R&D. So, Mike, I really like this piece. I love the lyrical quality. Just I feel it's a strong piece of writing, and it could be developed into something bigger or longer or whatever. So, so there are a few things here. So, speaking of lyricism, I think that you could have added slurs over some of these bars for the pianist, or maybe longer groups of slurs in places like this. Just kind of letting, maybe over 4 bars, letting the pianist know that, that was one section of music or one phrase of music for the pianist, anyways. As far as your lyrical phrasing goes for your main idea, I think you need to rethink this, right? Um, yes, you could use this particular thing because you would have technically down, up, right? So you've got that all considered, except for you're not remembering that this would be a very long, a very this would sort of stick out because it is only one beat in which for the bow to return to a down position, right? So if you actually just marked your bowing on the half bar, you have it all worked out, right? So down to here, up, down, up. And this can be just one down bow. This can be up, and then it ends with a nice long down bow on the long final note. Then the bowist will pick up their the bowist. The violinist will pick up their bow and then just restart the whole pattern again. All right, so that would probably be a better way of handling it. Or if you really wanted a long, lush, very, very long, lush bowing, you could just bow each bar, right? Have one bow mark here, one bow mark there, one bow mark there, and then end with that. Now I know that you kind of want this swoop down to this, you kind of like the idea of this bowing over into the F sharp. Okay, but it's I think you'll get that effect without having to slur. I think you'll get that effect even if you because you're the bowist is the bowist. I'm saying that again. The violinist is going down bow here, right? And by the time they get to here, the bow is ready to go up, right? So it will actually feel connected, right? So all you have to do is just say legato here, and it'll feel connected as if it were slurred. So yeah, so you don't have to connect these with a slur so much. All right. So that's just my observation on bowing lyrical phrasing. Now there is a bigger concern here, and that is I feel in some ways, and please don't take this. Everybody hates this word arbitrary, and it's not intended as an insult. All right, but I feel that the dynamics are a little arbitrary, like they're not quite, they don't quite serve a definitive purpose as the purpose that you may have wanted them to. Okay, like for instance, you start with mezzo piano, which is a kind of a weak kind of humdrum dynamic. It's not as strong as it could be. And then you go to softer right away, almost like an echo, and then you go to very soft at the end of the phrase to set this up again. It makes me, sort of brings me back to a mantra that I've been starting to use a lot, and that is that P is not as soft as you think it is, and that it is a really good place to start. And then you can breathe from piano into the phrase, right? If you really are concerned with balance, you could have pianissimo here, but that's not necessary. Both of them marked piano. I'd say piano legato, right? If you are really interested in connecting these, or piano dolcissimo or espressivo or whatever, right? And then have hairpins or crescendo and diminuendo marks that have breathe into the phrase, right? So you start off with piano, but you can reach a mezzo piano, mezzo forte dynamic inside the phrase, right? Rather than having everything being very still and without any kind of real life marked into it, right? I sort of feel a crescendo going from here to there and then backing off a little bit to here or backing off here, right? So dynamics is part of lyrical phrasing. I probably should have spent a little bit more time on that in lesson 1 of the Moooc. But those are just some suggestions there. Going on. Yeah, so some of the same problems when you change here. Probably bowing the half bar would work fine here, right? Just bow here, then there, and then here, right? So that way you get a nice strong down bow on this beat, which coordinates with the mounting energy, right? So if you bow out this downbeat, right, we just don't feel it, right? So once again, bowing across the bar line sometimes weakens the emphasis of the downbeat that is coming, right? Anyway, that's just a thought there, and then you return to your main theme here, and then you have like another episode here with the piano. I thought this was very interesting, and it's kind of goes on and on with the piano for a while, but I felt that like it could have been echoed a little bit more. There should have somehow connected this to what was going to follow in the violin, right? Now, once again, here you've got mezzo forte. Why not just forte, right? And then the piano mezzo forte, right? Because just a nice, strong, committed line there, especially in this high register, right? You don't want to go by halves, sort of, especially after the pianist has just been showing off about how great they are, right here, with all these accents, right? So you don't have to put that many accents in. You could just have accents for the first bar and then just say sim simile, and then the pianist will just accent everything, right? And then you definitely want some kind of diminuendo here to kind of ease off the energy, right? And then it's actually better to put the dynamic here, even though you're starting here with something else like forte or mezzo forte, right? And then once again, breathe. Where are my hairpins, right? What happens here? Does a person just shout for the entire time, or do they increase their volume or their voice and then back off a little bit from here and there for emphasis? Do they bring meaning into the phrasing, right? So look, this is perfect, right? Really good bowings marked, right? And this is also very good. A nice down bow and an up bow on those high notes. So that's all really nicely well thought out. This I wouldn't do. I would say just phrase to the end, bow to the end of there, and then new bow, one bow, and then this. This is, by the way, this is pretty doable in terms of just so long as it's not too fast. And then once again, the pianist shows off a bit, and then the violinist answers. Okay, so yeah, once again, forte. Just let the violinist answer with its own kind of passion. You don't underplay. Mezzo should be avoided. Just think you're in the P camp or you're in the F camp, right? So like here, you're coming to the end. Why not end softly, right? Why not bring things to an end so that we can feel the soft ending coming up a little bit better, right? So that's just, and don't forget your slurs, right? Otherwise, this is going to be very, da 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 with a bow, just very kind of choppy bowing, which is, if you want, is great, but it doesn't really seem to be set up by any dynamics. If you've got, if it's essentially a mezzo forte passage, hopefully you could change it to forte. And if you did want this to be separately bowed, then you would have something that sort of led the ear into it. But I suspect you just left off the slur, so I won't go into it too much. But yeah, nice climax to your idea. Okay, great. But yeah, this should all be slurred, I think. Okay, so yeah, so that's the first aspect that we have to think about. The second one is, did we have contrasts? Was this a study in contrast of function, texture, character? I think that the character of the two instruments was never in doubt, and I don't think you stomped on the line very much. You always had good separation between the soloist and the accompanist, and the soloist was always definitely a soloist, and you were always scoring in the sweet spot of that solo instrument, of the violin. So the functions were well defined, the textures were not a problem, and the characters of the instruments were in pretty good shape. So good work. I really liked this score. Wish that we could have read it at our reading sessions. Our next piece is Simon's Ripples. If you just listened to the what I thought was a very effective mock-up that I made from Note Performer and his Sibelius score, yeah, I felt this is a really strong piece and lots of quartal harmony. You're a man after my own heart, Simon. I do that a lot, and yeah, just had a wonderful kind of meditative cross-cultural essence to it. So there's really no problem here at all with contrasts, contrasts of register or contrasts of functions between the instruments. That's all really well defined. And especially very, very cool places like this, where you have the violin player acting as bass to the very high, chiming piano. Um, and then, yeah, and then just jumping back again. Yeah, I really do like this a lot. Um, Now, let's talk a little bit about bowing and lyrical phrasing. I think that's what I can help you with the most. Yeah, so I feel that this is actually not as strong as you may think, right? It's going to end up being down, up, pretty much, right? And so you're going to have this more well defined. I feel that if you really want this to stand out better, and you really intend it, then this might be a better way of scoring it, right? And then the violinist has absolutely no doubt what they're supposed to do. But the way that you've got it right now just sort of leaves me in a little bit of doubt. Like the violinist might think, well, should I do this then? Right? Or, maybe I should just ignore it and do this, right? So so the violin it feels like it's dropped off the edge of the world a little bit when with that kind of bowing. Now everything else is pretty nice. I felt, just as a comment similar to the last score, there was really room for inflection here. I mean, I really love the fact that you have a really good dynamic here. Pianissimo fits really, really well with with these chiming chords, and and then the piano here. But you could easily add inflections here, right? You know, what would how would that sound, for instance? Or even something like this. Oops, sorry. Right, something like that. Right. So if there were some indication of the emotion that you want to put into it and the meaning, adding meaning to your phrases. So, I felt you could have done this here, right? Hang on a second. You could have had something like that, just to match this up, right? Would have been a lot better. Notice how I reversed the stem direction on the B, so that you get a much cleaner, a little smile here from your notes. Yeah, it just works a whole lot better than the other way, which is just kind of ugly. You know what I mean? That's sort of ugly. Yeah, so some just a perfectionist kind of a thing. And you could have even slurred these guys, right? If you'd wanted to. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, so here this is all going to come off as separate notes, and I'm just, I mean, I think I know what you want. There's kind of a Arhu type of playing here, that really seems to evoke that. But you know, what about that? Right, leading to this more smooth section here. Um, yeah, I mean, so I'm just wondering about the phrasing here. If you had intended something but just left out. Now, I feel that you should really go somewhere, right? So this is piano. Going to mezzo piano is like kind of like going hardly anywhere, right? And you're not going to get very much life or color out of this. If you went up to forte or mezzo forte, then you'd just have a stronger color. You'd have more commitment from the violin, and then you could relapse back down to a softer dynamic. You probably don't need to mark this. Like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it a little clearer here. So, yeah. But I still think the pianist would be aware of that. See, here, I actually feel that you shouldn't cool down. You should this should be like mezzo forte or forte, and then you don't need to worry about the softening the pianist's left hand, and it's a very strong accompaniment to the piano playing above, right? Just a little bit more of a balance issue. But yeah, and once again, just yeah, I mean mezzo forte against this, I guess that's all right because you're leading up to here. What if, I mean, where are you going though? Like here, this is increasing from piano to mezzo forte, and then this is backing off to piano. I'm not so sure that this is going to work. I would say this, out of the entire piece, I would say this is really kind of the only place where that whole sense of balance and contrast between functions and texture and so on starts to break down a little bit. The piano kind of playing over the violin, and the violin sort of losing some of the sense of its part. And I mean, part of that is just that you want to recede into the background there, and fair enough. But there's so much interesting stuff going on in the violin that it's sort of hard. Like the ear is going to want to hold on to it, and it's going to find a hard time following it. So yeah, yeah. Anyway, but other than that, yeah, I just really found that all really well done. And these double stops are slow enough, and they're slow enough, and the violinist has plenty of time to think about where they're going to place their fingers next, how they're going to change their position in order to get them. And they're beautifully voiced chords here, just all together, just really wonderful. Yeah, and once again, I felt you could have had longer slurs here and more inflections, right? And you could have just stayed in P and then had, had hairpins that like brought out more, right? Rather than saying mezzo piano and just sort of a humdrum kind of a place to be dynamically. Right, but yeah, but forte, here you're getting some more life into it. The ending is all really nice. Yeah, so yeah, coming back here to this lower thing, I think you should just commit to a stronger dynamic right here. Yeah. Okay, and then this ending is all really, really, it's just totally fine. Yeah, ending on that high G. I almost wonder if you could have marked it like this. I mean, what you marked is perfectly fine. First of all, I'm going to say, before I mess up your thing here. But you could have also done this. Let's see. Layout. Oops, wait, sorry. Notations, I mean to say. And all right. Okay, you could have gotten exactly the same effect like this and also helped out the player, just a little easier to read. And look, right next to the A that they just played, right? So they don't have to worry about what are they going to do. They just can see it coming a mile away. So yeah, so anyway, so those are my comments on your piece. Really, really fun to look it over, fun to give it an evaluation. And, look, there's still time to get in on more of this, and you can join in the Moooc and drop out and do whatever you like. And I'm open to looking at more of your scores, and just really had fun with it. And I think you are, you just have great ideas, and this is a great composition. This is a great piece of work. So maybe just tweak it a bit and see if you can get some players to play it. I really would have loved to have this, just like almost every piece from my dotted Breve players who's ready to go onto the stands for the readings. Okay, so and this work no less than any other. All right, so Evan Kauffmann's untitled work, and it's just really, once again, a piece that should have been read by our players, would have sounded great, and is a mature piece of composition. I can still give you some, I can still give you some feedback, but I want to show you something first. Okay, that is, I'm just going to take my little old time signature 3/4 here, and let's see, more options. See, we're not going to rewrite the bars because that's sort of nerve-wracking. All right, we're going to drop him right here. Okay, now we're going to go back to the beginning, and we are going to drop in 3/2. Now look what happens. All right. So look at how much more natural everything is, right, with these divisions. Just the way that they fall. See, this can now become the, this can now become a regular group, right, of rhythms. So this piece really is it's really in 3/2 for those first 7 bars, right? So, and there are other places as well, where you've got that same rhythm going on here. This is also in 3/2. This may also be possibly scored in 3/2, but obviously there are places that are where it really is 3/4, or 6/4 if you wanted to keep the same sense of having the value of 6 quarter notes per bar in different types of rhythmic stresses. You could mark these as 2 bars of 6/4 if you wanted to, and then you'd have the division in the middle. But anyways, that kind of thing really, really helps your players. All right, now I will undo all of that correction, but I want you to please consider that, because I'm hoping, Evan, that you will take this work seriously and make something, try to get it performed with somebody or published or something like that. It's just a very, very strong work. Now let's talk a little bit about rhythmic phrasing, dynamics, and so on. All right, so look, just like you heard me harping on with everybody else, P is a great dynamic, right? You've got P, but you got mezzo piano, but you've got no inflections, and you don't really have to do anything, right? But what about the poor player? You're sort of leaving it up to him to kind of figure out how to breathe into these phrases and everything else. So why don't you not, take away the doubt. Mark this P and give us some hairpins, give us some inflections, give us some breath into these beautiful phrases, all right? Now, you've got nice, long, impressionistic kinds of phrasing here. What if it were like this? Right? What if you were definitely exploring that? Or what if it were like this? Right? With the lift off of this long note going into here rather than, right? Because I don't feel a breath here, right? I feel that that the sense of connectedness leads into this, right? And then with that bowing scheme, then you just got it all worked out, right? Right? And then you've got your down and your up bow, and you've got beautiful phrases to which you can actually, they have a certain kind of sense to them, right? They got a certain life, and they've got a certain vitality, and then you can push them much farther here. This makes a lot of sense to something a little stronger. So piano to mezzo forte is going somewhere, right? As opposed to mezzo piano going to mezzo forte, it's not going anywhere. You're just barely lifting, you're barely twitching when you go from mezzo piano to mezzo forte. Once again, I've said this before in other writings, it is not a dynamic thermometer. Mezzo piano is the blending tone of piano. Mezzo forte is the blending tone of forte, right? It is a diminution of what's special about those dynamic regions. Okay, and you can watch more about what I've got to say about that in my my lecture on texture, balance, and function. But yeah, it's really not a step that you step up and you step up and you step up. Yes, you will run into these dynamics on the way. On the way from piano to forte, on the way from forte to piano, you run into these dynamics, but they shouldn't be places where you rest all the time, or they shouldn't be an end in themselves so much. All right. What if this were just back to piano, right? It's okay for both instruments to be the same dynamic, right? They will balance so long as you have placed everything in the right place. Okay, so that's basically what I've got to say about your dynamic phrasing and balance and everything else. I feel in general your slurs could be longer and they could be grouped a little bit more with a little bit more regularity and with a little bit more attention to the way that things sing, the way that things emphasize, rather than just, I feel that this is, I'm sorry, this is the second time I'm going to use the word arbitrary, and I apologize for that. It's not meant as an insult, and it's not meant as that you lack imagination or craft, all right? But I feel that with a piece is this good, you should think of a stronger, just move the division of bow over, right? So that there is more solidity to the phrasing, right? Anyway, that's my feeling about it. All right, so now, speaking of contrast of register, you do that. It's nice. You start off in the middle, and you make this really feel good. It's like you feel like going up to that high D sharp. You give it some life, right? Which is all the more reason why this should be soft at the beginning, right? Yeah, don't be afraid if both of them are soft. The pianist will balance, unless there really is a hell of a lot going on, one over the other. Yeah. So yeah, and you do manage to keep things out of each other's way, and this is really nice. This middle voice right in here, this is just really great scoring. And then this trading off, the accompaniment for the for leading the leading instrument, and you keep the left hand simple, and I really think that that's important because it allows the violin to dominate in its support role, right? See, this is a nice inflection in here. That is nice. I like the dynamics in there. They're pretty strong. Yep. Yeah, that is a well scored passage. Yeah, and then here, like, you want to be stronger than the pianist here, but mezzo piano, this sounds strong. It's fine. Like, this could be piano, and then you'd have a contrast, right? But I think that you should approach this. You shouldn't just have it, if you just want to go piano and have it suddenly be soft, you should mark subito, but I don't feel a subito there. I feel this right there. If you forgive me for interjecting my own opinion here. I feel that this comes down gracefully in a sort of a very impressionist post-romantic way. All right, so this is my idea about there. Take it or leave it. Yeah, and then this is good, but see, like, what if this were P and then this were mezzo forte with both instruments, right? And then it was back to P, and then you wouldn't have to mark this, right? It would just be naturally there, and then you had a little inflection here, right? What if it were mezzo forte and then P with both instruments with an inflection in the middle, right? And then you can just kill this, right? And then you've got you could even put that in there, right? Then you've got some life here, right? As opposed to just like kind of block dynamics, which I'm seeing a lot of. Anyways, with a piece with these kinds of influences and this kind of voice, I don't want you to go down the road of like Mozart type dynamics. Yeah, so I will stop harping on about that. You can just apply that thinking to the rest of the score if you choose. If not, don't worry. But yeah, once again, 3-2 would work very strongly in there. Okay, so this is really, let's get back to contrasts of function, texture, and character. All the way through, the violin is a violin, and it's not it's not doing pianistic type parts, and and the piano is making room for it, right? Here's a place where, yes, you should have differences in the dynamics, but this should be P if that's mezzo forte. Yeah, and this is very nice. I like this. That's very, very cool. Great contrasts of function, right? And then leading back to your original idea. So this is wonderful. The way that it is right now is this beautiful little album leaf. It's sort of like, it reminds me a little bit of that, what was that piece that Lily Boulanger wrote just for fun on an afternoon probably when she was feeling healthy again, and she sort of celebrated by writing a duet for piano and violin for a friend of hers, and then they played it. They played it at the Villa de Medici while she was in her Rome doing her Rome. She was doing her Prix de Rome residency. Yeah, okay, so this is really, really nice too. Yeah, very, very nice. Just So yeah, you really don't need to mark Sul G or Sul anything because like the registers you're using are all really very obviously marked out well. Maybe this is really going to be played Sul G. You might want to mention it earlier if you just really want to ensure that effect. But I'm sure that people will keep it. The general impulse will be to keep it Sul G. So, but maybe mark it. I'd say. Yeah, and then this is all just really fun at the end. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so nice score. Sorry to be so picky about dynamics and about phrasing and stuff like that, but that's really, you don't need help anywhere else. So why bother, why bother mentioning it? Nice strong work, Evan, and I hope that you turn this around, edit it and get it played. All right. All right. So Lonely Without You by Kaizad Patel. Um, yeah, so this is a very cool piece. Once again, nicely written, nicely scored, could easily have been read. So in our reading sessions, no problems at all. Okay, so a few tips on just notation and score layout and everything else. This looks like pretty sure this is a Sibelius score. So the soloist line should be reduced, right, in size. So just like if you're using 8.5, just check the small staff box. Sorry, 7.5. If you're using Sibelius 7.5, check the small staff box when you type I and you get into instruments. Or if you're in 8 or 8.1 or whatever, the later versions, then just click on where there's a size next to the name of the instrument and then select a smaller size. That way you get more room, especially if your soloist is like really going on and on with a bunch of notes and the accompanist is not playing as much, right? You don't have that situation here, but just in general, it's good to reduce it, and it just makes it easier on the eye for the accompanist. Because this is the piano score, right? That will be the case with all of your piano plus soloist or piano plus ensemble works. Like if there's a piano score like this, the soloist and the accompanying, or the other players, the soloists and the other people will have smaller scores or smaller staves. Okay, another thing is, unless this is a trill, then you don't want to slur it like this. The slur from a grace note should always go into the next note, because it's considered to be a subsidiary of this note, right? It's kind of like an ornament of this note rather than of this note, right? So yeah, so slur from there to there. I wish I had your Sibelius score. See, then I could mess with it like I am with everybody else's. Okay, very coolly scored piano part. I like the phrasing and everything else in it. In fact, you've got some really nice lyrical phrasing. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Right? It's just really just nicely thought out. However, once again, mezzo piano. Look, mezzo piano is a crutch. it's almost like you can't commit. It's like somebody asking you, like, well, when you gonna ask so and so out on a date, and you say, oh well, maybe, right? So, so this is just not committing. All right, please don't begin a piece mezzo piano or mezzo forte. Begin a piece piano or forte. Try that. Try to really force yourself to commit to one region of the dynamic spectrum, either piano or forte, and then you can nuance and you can reduce and increase from there, right? Rather than just being stuck in the middle, where you put a nuance in this, and this, what is it? You need hairpins in here, espressivo, right? What are you expressing, right? How are you increasing the energy or decreasing the energy, right? If you were to put crescendo and diminuendo hairpins in here, how far up could the player go, right? Not very far, because you've limited them to mezzo piano. So look, it's really better to start with piano and let the player increase, fill in that piano register with things that go up to mezzo piano and even mezzo forte, right? So yeah, so please, piano, espressivo, and then show us what espressivo means, right? With some hairpins, all right? Sorry, I'm just seeing so much of the same thing from everybody, whatever their level, and I'm just really, getting a gutsful now. So really, stop with the mezzo stuff, right? See, look here, you're increasing to mezzo forte, and that just really increases to nothing, right? But obviously, look at this beautiful crescendo, how you're just piling on the energy, and you're going to what, right? Maybe I'll take you out on a date tomorrow, right? What do you got to feel some passion here. Look, you got accents, right? Accents. This should be forte, and that should be piano, and you should just go for it, right? And just increase and show that listener that you mean business. By the way, if you have a portamento here, you have to be careful, because if you're sliding up like this and you don't connect it with a bowing, then then it's going to go bow, right? As opposed to So if you really mean then just put the slur over everything, right? So that it's done with all one bow. So that's my thought on that. Although it might, in terms of successful bowing, it might go better like this: down, up to here, down, up, right? See, that would be a better bowing, right? So just let this guy be himself. All right. Okay. Yeah, so sorry to chew you out for hesitant dynamics, but really, come on. This is a great piece of music. You have got to just mean it. You've got to commit. Right? So this isn't so bad. So like if you take my advice on the previous, it isn't so bad going to mezzo forte here. But then like you sort of stay in mezzo forte, right? You keep coming back to mezzo forte. You don't get to forte till here. All right, so just watch out. That's all I'm saying. Watch out. Too much. Now here, I've talked about this in a previous, I think not dotted Breve, but longa. Just write out the notes. No ottava above the left-hand staff and no ottava below the right-hand staff, right? This should be scored either just with ledger lines going up to A, which is not so high, or you should just stick in a treble clef right here, okay? But don't put in ottava. Big no-no, right? You can put ottava up here and ottavasa below here, right? But don't go, hey, octave higher from your left hand or octave lower for your right hand, all right? This area in here, sacrosanct. Do not put ottava marks inside this area. That's a better way to think about it, unless both hands are ottava going up, right? So like if this hand were way high and this hand were way high, but you would just go into the treble clef. So if you have treble clef and you need to even further mark ottava in order for both hands to be clear, then you could put an ottava mark here. But look, treble clef is your friend. Just stick a treble clef there and then put a bass clef there to correct at the end. Okay. Yeah. So I'll stop harping on about it. But let's talk about the main points, which were, I'm looking. Speaking of ottava, just hang on. Just bear with me for one more minute. This doesn't need to be ottava. You know, the pianist can read this high B with no problem, which seems to be the highest note in the entire thing. Yeah, and this, see, this is silly. Like, look how low it goes. Sorry, I don't mean to say silly. That's kind of a mean word to say. But if you're going down into ledger lines below the staff, then that's an indication your ottava mark has gone on for way too long, right? Yeah, so this is all readable. This is all very readable without the ottava. So just hike this up an octave and get rid of this mark. Okay. All right, so now back to what we're really here for. And this here, you do something similar to the last two scores of Joel and Mike. Sorry, Joel and Simon, I meant to say. And that is that you is you've got the violin as bass, and that's very, very cool, right? So yeah, good contrasts of register, good good lyrical phrasing and bowing. I mean, you got that all together. Yep. It just really, once again, I'm giving you lots of feedback on your dynamic phrasing, on your sense of really, making this music live, right? It needs more inflections, more of these hairpins. You need to tell us what espressivo means in each bar, or not. It doesn't have to be every bar, but in more of these bars, like it should be like hairpin, like up to here and then back off. See, that would be a very cool effect, right? And then poco accent, you don't even need to put the poco there. You don't even need the accent. Just push and pull out, and then everybody knows what to do there, right? Okay. So the sense of contrast of function and character, that was all very well done, and I really, really like the way that you had the violin as middle voice, and as the bottom voice, and as the top voice. You did that all great, Kaizad. So I'm really happy with this score, and I wish that we had, once again, just like every piece that I'm looking at, I wish that we had included it in the reading with Donald and Ludwig, because yeah, just really excellent contributions and excellent scores. Yep. Okay, so yeah, once again, what do we do here? Treble clef, right? And this does not need to be ottava at all. Just score it an octave higher, because everybody can read that. Okay. All right. Good job. Yeah, great. And yeah, so just go back to this piece, try to get it played, fix it the way that I've suggested, or maybe you have even better, stronger ideas than I've suggested, and go to it, man. Now we have Marat's piece, sort of untitled, and yeah, here we've got, I think some of this over marking, piano, and then diminuendo, piano, diminuendo, piano. It really has a lot to do with the way that that notation programs play back things. Like if you put in an expressive hairpin here that's just really meant to show inflection rather than changing the overall dynamic, then Sibelius will just stupidly like drop down to pianissimo and then down to triple P, right? So you wouldn't need this though, Marat. You could just like erase these two, and then like everybody will get that these are inflections rather than rather than real, than actually telling you to change the dynamic. Maybe if you put in like a hairpin going the other way, da, it might be not what you intend. Okay, so here, mezzo piano. See, that's in character. That's fine, right? I'm not all mezzo pianos are evil, okay? But yeah, but just like to say, okay, slightly more warm here. Okay, and yeah, so very cool piano part. I like the kind of bass register grind along there. Yeah, I think once you've established the way that you're going to do your piano stuff, then you can just like, stop notating it, right? This kind of reminds me of like the just kind of the lift system, just the lines with the notches, right? Probably would work better here if you wanted to be really precise about it throughout the entire piece. But it's a general style. I would probably just do what you're asking to do here without really needing to be told. This is kind of cool. See, like here's the exception, right? You could say pedal, and then you could just mark pedal and then say sim here. And that way the pianist would know to let this cloud rather than to lift on each note, right? Unless you forgot to put those in. Okay. Yeah, so here, nicely set up. You're headed for Sol G, but why couldn't this be Sol G? Right? Why couldn't you just start here? That would be really cool. And then it would be more of a coherent line. Right? And then you got the name of the string for and so on. That's all good. Instead of Sol G. But yeah, Sol G is sometimes just easier to and then you could say Sol G norm right here, because obviously this is not exactly possible on the G string, eh? So yeah, but that's fine, yeah. But that's just my recommendation: Sol G from here, and then norm here. All right, very strong, good contrast of register. You are just totally not, you are not going to miss anything that was in that Moooc assignment, and I really appreciate that you were really paying attention to the parameters, right? You can score any way you like, of course, but for the specific Moooc assignments, there are certain things that just elements of craft that are good to work on during the assignment, and you definitely did that here. So lyrical phrasing, though, I just feel these are all separated bows, which is a more demonstrative kind of effect. And yet in mezzo piano and mezzo forte, it doesn't really tell us anything, right? So if you want to cool down on these dynamics here and have them kind of in the blah register, I would say probably slurs work better, right? Especially with an expressive piece. Yeah, just mezzo piano, mezzo forte, mezzo piano. What if this was piano and then you had a hairpin here increasing into mezzo forte just without having to be told, right? And then backing out to piano and then increasing into just a committed forte, and then you could really just lean into these. All right, now this time signature of 6/4, that's not really what you scored here, right? If this were 6/4, then this would be two tied quarter notes, right? You would be thinking, 1 and 2 and or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What you really mean here is 3/2, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and right? That's really what you mean here. So yeah, so don't mark 6/4 if you're just adding 2 beats at the end. If you just want to add 2 beats at the end, keep the 4/4, make this into 2/4. All right? That's the best way to go about it. All right. Yeah, so all right, back to lyrical phrasing. I felt that this could be, a slur on this could have just made, slurring from here to there would have been great. Even slurring from here to there would have been great. And then you have this nice up bow, boom, pow, down bow on this, right? Slur, right? Then you have more meaning to the lift of the rhythm. I wasn't really seeing, throughout your piece, I'm not really seeing the subdivision of 3 plus 2 plus 3, right? So this doesn't make as much sense to me in terms of lyrical phrasing, and I'm not seeing any inflections that stress the properties of this particular rhythmic layout within the lyrical line, right? That's why I question it. That's why I think it's just easier to go down bow, up bow, down bow, up bow, right? And just make it easier on yourself. Yeah. Now this is all good. Yep. I'm happy with that. I would think that this, most players will play this as as up, down, slurring to here, up, down. And that way the down bow gets all of the longest beats, right? So you could even help them out by putting an up bow mark here. That's like one of the few places where I would say make a suggestion, right? But you don't even need to say that. Yeah. This, I feel like you could help the player out by like maybe putting a slur over this, you know, just to like, maybe a slur over each bar, or just a slur over the entire passage, or just say sostenuto at the beginning. There's no dynamic marking here, so I'm not sure what you want to do. So, but even if you've been piano before, you should mark it again because this is a new section. You've got to change in your, yeah, just obvious. I mean, if you were putting on rehearsal marks, you'd put one here. So put a dynamic here. Oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah. This is cool. You might even get away with, well, just accents or, yeah. Yeah, this is all good. Good, and nice contrast of register here. And in terms of contrast of functions, you're being very clear about that throughout this whole thing. And this is a nice ending. So yeah, so once again, a really good piece, and would have been so great to have read, and is worth pursuing for its own sake. Just and you're in Sibelius, so just kill this, right? Just select and delete. You do not need violin, piano. There are no other instruments in this score, so you don't need this, right? Just get rid of it. All right, nice work. All right, so very last score of assignment 2. Now, once again, if anybody is watching this and they did send me a second, assignment 2, and it was lost by my system when my system crashed last year, then just let me know, and I will put it on to the assignment 3, evaluations that are coming up in about a week to 10 days, as I said before. That might end up being 2 weeks just because I had that crash yesterday and a couple other just dumb things happen. So I might put it off until maybe a week before the end of the month. Okay. So there's something that I did not say to everybody, and I just want to just give everybody a clue on this. People extracted their parts and they included them in PDF form as if, like if we were going to have these read in evaluations, which is very cool. Okay, now you will never see this. You will never see the piano part extracted on its own unless you're looking at like very, very old editions, which I have no idea how people did this. Just played their piano part and had no idea what was going on with their soloists, right? Because basically a pianist is an accompanist, right? And has to kind of organize. They're the orchestra, like you're the conductor if you're the pianist in a score like this. So you really have to know what everybody's doing, right? Nice work here in reducing the size of your staff. That was great. Yeah, so you don't need a separate piano score. Just the musicians, and then the pianist gets this score, right? And that's what they work off of. So I'm really sorry. I should have just made that more clear. I think I said it like kind of in a very offhand way in one or two of the lessons, but I should have made that clear. And people are extracting the piano part from the score, and it's not necessary. So sorry about that. It's really my fault, not yours. Okay. So Matthew Willis. Nice strong score, Matthew. You had it's very cool ideas for your other submission or submissions, and this is no different. I like the scoring. Some of it is a little unlikely or unnecessary, and I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, but first let's just talk about bowing and lyrical phrasing. Okay, and contrast of register. There are some in here, and they're very cool. Like here, this could have been marked Sol G, for instance. It would have been very cool. Maybe Sol G up to here. And then just had They go to normal if you'd wanted that difference in tone quality. And and your triple stops are all your triple stops are all quite possible. There's no big surprises, nothing too horrible or anything like that. It's all manageable. All right. Okay, but so I think we can just focus on lyrical phrasing and like the relationship of the two parts to one another. Okay, so here we go. Um, so this is a little strange to me. Let's blow that up a little. So the problem here really is that the phrasing isn't completely even here. It kind of sort of changes the stress of where things want to fall, lyrically speaking, right? So if you have da 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 da, it just I don't know. It just doesn't quite feel right to me. I wonder if it wouldn't be better just to phrase these like the whole bar. Da da da, and then this could be a separate bow, or da 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 da. Right. See, so then you get up, down to here, then up, down, up, and then down, up, or down, down. So it just makes a little bit more sense to me. Um, so yeah, it's just you kind of do the same strategy here. Um, the only critique I would have here is I almost feel like there's a little too much going on in the piano, and not enough in the violin. I sort of feel like the violin could lead a little bit more. It worries me a little bit to see that much space in here. But it's maybe what I'm hearing in my own head from looking at this isn't giving me the whole picture. But it happens from time to time. Um, just a thought here on double stops. This works great. This not quite as good right here. So I know what you're doing here. You're going D sharp on the A string and B on the E string, and then you are jumping down to play a little G third down here on the D and A strings. But you have to think about what that entails. So they're going to be in a higher position on the top two strings, on the first and second string, and then they're going to jump over to the second and third string in kind of a lower place, in a sort of in a kind of a different finger layout, and play this. And the G here is not going to make much of a difference because it's going to sort of have a kind of a rolled feeling to it, right? Or almost a grace note feeling with the G, going bum bum for the rest of it, or but dum. And look, you've already got the E here, right? You've got kind of the same chord happening in both hands. So, maybe just a G6 here, right? Right, because you don't really need the dominant when you're playing a minor chord voicing like this, right? You just need the tonic, and the mediant is good enough for most things. Or give your pianist the mediant. So, and just have this be a G6. That would be a whole lot easier. And actually really stylistically and in terms of positions would be just really great to go from this sixth to a sixth here with the B left out. All right, so yeah, okay, there's one other thing, or actually two other things I want to talk to you about. So here, this is great. Da, 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 or da, 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 is what I meant to say. That's very strong, right? But ba, ba, it's not quite as strong. Ba, ba. It's almost better to go da, da, da. It's, just, I feel like you're taking, when you slur into the downbeat and it's kind of naked here, it's just not quite, doesn't really quite give the same push, I feel. Yeah, okay, so there was this other place. So yeah, once again I feel I want to hear the downbeat here, and here. Okay, but the thing, yeah, and right here as well. Yeah, just not quite so sure about that. This is cool because you're doing a groups, you're doing groups, the phrasing of of threes against threes, right? Or twos against threes, I should say. This is almost like the 3-2 that I was talking about before. It's 3-2 phrasing in the violin. So that's all good. And see, in here, like you're doing that other style of bowing, just all really good. So why not put this style throughout the whole piece? Because it's just much stronger in terms of bowing and articulation and the meaning of the phrase and everything else. Okay, but that's not the area that I wanted to focus on. It was right here. See, this is nice. I really do like this. That is very cool. This is nice as well. Yep. Yep, and this is going to work good against the syncopation of the pianist's right hand melody, especially as they're kind of interfering with each other's territory here. It's going to be a little clunky or clustery in here, but not impossible. Okay, so that's kind of what I just wanted to talk to you about with bowing and lyrical phrasing. Contrasts of register are really nice. It would have been nice to see like maybe Sol G from here. Just to kind of just settle down into this in a really heartfelt way. Good inflections, but not, so piano, you got your hairpins here, you got your hairpins here, maybe a little bit more here than rather just a diminuendo, kind of like maybe spell out a little bit more. I don't know. Could be a little bit better, but yeah, it's a little blank of inflection. You could even put inflections in these little guys if there was a specific kind of emphasis you wanted to the small, this little phraselet. All right. Okay. So that just leaves like the contrast of function, texture, character. It's good. I wonder even if like you could have put pizzicato here instead of staccato. Yeah. But yeah, you got enough pizzicato going on already, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty well done. I would just say, make sure that you always have, very well defined dynamics, and that it's all really clear. It's like, this is good right here. This is good. That G, by the way, that's easy to read for the piano player. So you don't need the ottava there. Or that F sharp, really. I'd say like if you're going up to above high A, then and things are complex to read, then you need the ottava. Otherwise, don't bother. It's all good. Yeah. So so just nicely done. Just would be very, very cool to hear. Yeah. I mean, just watch out for crowding the same register in kind of counter melodies or counterpoint, making things very close together like this. Yeah, this is cool though. This harmonization, this kind of falling and looping back as you go. That's all really good. Okay, and just one other thing is like if you do feel like places where you want to add double stops and stuff like that, just to go back to here. Yeah, if you want to add double stops and things like that, and you also have chords in the right hand of the piano, just they don't have to, like, you've got two D sharps here, and you have a B here and none here, right? So this could be an F sharp sixth, right? And this could be a D sharp sixth, and the interlocking quality would be really, really cool, right? So you don't have to have the same things, or you can have the same things and overstress them, which is another really cool way of doing it. But kind of halvesies might not have the same effect that you were hoping for. So, and also triads are take a while to set up and are much less effective than just sixths or thirds. All right. Okay, that's all I got to say about it. Very cool piece. Once again, wish that I could have heard it, and wish I could have heard everybody's score in the dotted Breve category. From here on, a lot of people sort of dropped out and got too busy, and I was having problems too. And I just completely, once again, do not blame anybody for moving on and doing other things with their training. And that's totally fun, and fine. But if you want to come back, after having seen some of these, if you've got some more evaluations you want to chip in, whether whatever you're doing right now, I'm open to putting them, in my evaluations. If you want to come back to the Moooc like months from now and continue to work on it and be supporting on Patreon and get evaluations from me, I will put my Moooc evaluations at the end of each month. Whether I am, whether there's an ongoing thing with me and Longa and Dotted Breve supporters or not. Okay, so just a thought. Thanks everybody. It was really, really fun lesson cycle for this lesson 2, and looking forward to the next one.